All right, last but definitely not least for our short education presentations is going to be Ted London, talking about creating dashboard reports for both executives and line managers using a single version of the truth, which we all know is a huge challenge. Executives and line managers want to improve how they manage operations, service, and delivery, but their vantage points range from strategic to tactical. How does an organization create perspective-centric reports and dashboards from the same data? Failing to do so can confuse your audience and dilute the credibility of your reports. Creating a centralized data warehouse from which to report is an important step to solve this problem. A single version of the truth emerged across reports when a California department merged data into a single warehouse. The results empowered regional customer service offices to better manage staffing levels, identify areas for improvement, and grow their service in accordance with public needs. So if that sounds interesting, please join me in welcoming Ted London to the stage.
That's Ted. That's all right. Thanks, Russ. Welcome. Thank you. All right. So actually, just one minor correction. Ted's down there. I'm Sean Mahon, but you can talk to him too. Trust me, we'll both stick around. But what I want to talk about today is what Russ queued up is dashboards and reporting, which is a very common topic. It's something that all of us deal with in all the systems that we build. But I'm going to help you guys out because two things. One, it's a big topic. We've got 12 minutes or less. And two, the food coma is rapidly settling in, right? So what I did is I reversed the presentation a little bit so that the most important stuff is up front, okay? So important tip number one, to get to a single version of the truth, the key to getting good dashboards and good reports is a good data warehouse, right? A data warehouse is a repository designed specifically for housing all of your data in a way that's specifically set up for dashboards, reports, analytics, and trends, right? So again, a lot of us, what we tend to do when we build reports into our systems, and I'm guilty of this too, we build them straight off our transactional system. Sometimes that makes sense, but for a good long-term reporting infrastructure, having a dedicated data warehouse definitely improves that, okay? So that was important point number one. Data warehouse is simpler, it's faster, and it's an accurate way to get to your information, okay? Closely related point number two, if you remember nothing else, is that if you have a good warehouse that's set up that accurately reflects your business, you've got the best chance of getting a single repository where reports for both executives as well as managers and line staff can be written. So executives, they tend to have reporting needs that are more along the lines of trends, analytics, and deeper volumes of information, right, and sifting through that. Managers and line staff, their interests tend to be more along the line of workload tracking, right, so more along the lines of the operational functions. Both of those requirements can be met with a good data warehouse, okay? So why don't we go and start with revisiting that topic where we said, why do we not see more warehouses out there, right? Well, most folks tend to write reports off of the transactional system, and there's good reasons for that, right? The most important reason is that that's where the data is, so it's the most convenient source for us to get to. But you have to think about it a little bit and think about what it is that that system is typically designed for, okay? The number one key to most of the applications and systems that we use on a day-to-day basis is that they're designed for speed. Right, they're processing a transaction. Got to get this claim through, pay this fee, get this workflow approved, right? They're designed to move work from one end to the other quickly and efficiently. So that in turn leads to a specific data model that's designed to make transactions faster and more efficient. So you've heard of relational databases, right? Relational database, normalized. That's great. It works perfectly for a good transactional system, but it's complicated. And so when you have a complicated data model, writing reports off of that is equally complicated, number one. Number two, when you're writing reports and running them off of your main transaction system, you potentially impact the transactions going on. So there's real performance considerations there, right? And third, this happens a lot, right? Because your focus is on speed, the type of data that's stored in that database that is most easily accessible tends to just be your current state data, your snapshot, right? How often have you run into the situation where you said, I'd like to get a report of X over time, last months, days, years? I can't quite do that. It's in the audit history, but we might be able to write something for you, right? And you wind up with a custom report. That's one of the drawbacks to using your transactional system for reporting. On a related side note, that's also one of the reasons why you also see that reports are some of the first things to get cut whenever the project schedule is running behind, right? So typically those run at the tail end, you build them last, so if you've got to get your schedule back on track, you tend to cut the report, okay? Now, by contrast, the data warehouse, it's designed for reporting. That is its purpose, okay? It prioritizes information over business processes. So you're not going to be doing transactions in your data warehouse, right? A warehouse is structured with a much simpler data model designed specifically for pulling reports, okay? It's dimensional. So you've heard the terms fact tables and dimension tables, if you've heard anything about a data warehouse, right? A fact table is like a key entity, right? A piece of information that reflects your business. And around that, quite literally, are the dimensions to that information. And that's how you build your query. So fact tables and dimension tables form what's called a star schema. And that's a much more efficient model for building reports, especially longitudinal type of reports, right? So to see data and trends over time, okay? But the other key is that it's a separate database. So no impact on your transactional data. Your production system is running over here, doing what it needs to do efficiently, and in a periodic or regular interval, you're getting information fed into the warehouse from that system that you can use specifically for reporting, okay? So the devil's in the details for sure with building any kind of data warehouse. However, one of the keys to getting that type of project going is structuring and scoping it around three fairly simple and straightforward questions, okay? The first question, and by far the most important, is what do I need to learn from the data? Define your business objective, right? The answers to those questions, whether they come from your executives, your managers, your staff, those figuratively and sometimes literally form the facts that will be your data warehouse model, okay? The second and obviously important piece is define your data sources. Where is all this information going to come from, okay? Could be one system, could be multiple systems, right? But in answering those questions up front, that gives you an idea of the amount of integration effort is going to be involved, right? How much scope is involved is based on the number of systems that you actually have to tie in, relate the data together, and see how it all plays. Now the third is define your output. So how do I present the data, okay? And this is a piece that not a lot of people think about, but this is really more, art than science when you get into data presentation. This gets into visualization. How do I actually display the results, right? A lot of times it makes perfect sense to just have a simple table layout, an Excel export, things like that that we can work with, but the sky's the limit in terms of how you can actually do visualizations, right? So here's one example of a data warehouse and a report that is produced out of that. And you can see some really good visualization elements in there. Number one is color, right? Color is a great way to show thresholds, ranges. You can see at a glance, well, red's not so good, yellow's okay. We really want to be in green. So it's a representation of a range and someplace that you're either trying to get to or a range that you're monitoring to try to keep it within there. The other thing is we've got dials and gauges, which is, again, a great visualization of like a real life object that makes it easy to relate and to understand what we're actually doing. So one of the other examples I like to use is several years ago we did a system that was doing grant management reporting, and it had to track on a quarterly basis the number of submissions, and we had to get everybody to submit 100%. So our BI dashboard was a thermometer, and it was actually showing the temperature rising quite literally as we got to that top point. So quick and easy way to see how close or far you are from that mark. Okay. Now, alternatively, you can do dashboards with much more traditional pie charts, bar charts, and these are great for operational metrics, right? So, for example, bar charts are great for showing comparisons of categories, right? Workload metrics. How many cases are assigned to worker A versus worker B? Pie charts are great for showing pieces of a whole, right? What percentage of my caseload is comprised of this type of category of case, right? And you can see those either as a snapshot or as a point in time. But Two keys to this, right? One is that this information that I'm showing you, right, literally comes from the same place, right? It all comes from the same warehouse, even though the nature of the information is in two different aspects. One's analytic, one is trend-based over time. The other is more snapshot, point-in-time workload view, all right? Now you see, I told you I put this presentation in reverse, so the intro is at the end. But the one takeaway there is in the area that I focus on, it tends to be Microsoft technology. But those two dashboards that I showed you, one was indeed a Microsoft stack using Dynamics, the other was Oracle. So the point there is that it really doesn't matter what your technology preference is or what stack you use. The concepts behind a data warehouse are really technology agnostic. The tool you use to get there there's really no limit. It's just a matter of how you approach the project, all right? So with that, I wanted to thank you for your time and your attention. I know we're eager to finish up the lunch and get back to the exhibit, so thanks very much.